myself? Please tell me I haven't been. I've been reading the whole thing out loud to nobody. Just great, just dandy. Alright. Pretend like I read what happened before. Noelle eased off the accelerator instinctively. Almost there. Thought. Should I read that? Why do I feel like I shouldn't be here? Probably because of the very intensifying music that sounds like everything's gonna explode in this forest. The engine growled as it climbed the last gravel hill. Beyond the town emerged from the low mist. The streets were uneven, gray dirt. Fuck. The streets were of uneven gray dirt. Wooden houses, all with blinds drawn or closed. God, I can't fucking read. It looked like an abandoned model under the leading sky. I don't think I can read. Fuck. Leading sky, leading sky. He saw curtains moving in a window. But when he looked, they stood still. An ancient church dominated the street. The tower had no cross on top, only a twisted lightning. Fuck, man! Jesus! The tower had no cross on top, only a twisted lightning lob. An empty square, no children, no dogs, no birds. The silence was so dense it buzzed in his ears, but Noelle felt with total certainty that he was being watched. Very cozy, just like in Mom's stories. He drove on slowly, keeping an eye on the map on the seat. A folded sheet handwritten by his great aunt. The ink was smeared on some edges by the dampness. "Turn where it smells of firewood," said one of the marginal notes. Noelle rolled down the window a bit. The freezing air hit his face, and yes, it smelled of burnt firewood and resin. The house appeared at the end of the mossy stone path. It was huge, of dark veined wood, with high ceilings that vanished into the treetops. The structure seemed to breathe with the wind. A warm light, almost orange, escaped through the cracks. It illuminated the dust floating on the porch. There were no cars parked, no signs of anyone in the overgrown garden, but the front door was ajar. Did they leave it like this? In this cold? He turned off the engine. The silence returned suddenly. He got out of the vehicle, and the crunch of his boots sounded alien. He looked for the key under a stone, as the letter indicated. His fingers touched the cold, rough metal. He found it, rusty, heavy, but whole. Why wouldn't it be whole? Did it say in the letter that it wouldn't be whole? Hey, yeah, our key's 2 pieces. He climbed the porch steps. The wood groaned under his weight. Oh, I didn't like that. That scared me a little bit. I didn't expect there to be a noise there. He pushed the door with his fingertips. The silence inside was the first thing that hit him. She's ugly. Ophelia? Please tell me that's not your great aunt that I'm insulting. It wasn't an empty silence. It was a silence that waited. What? Stiff air? Stiff air? Windows never been opened in their life? Then the smell. A mix of firewood out for days and damp wood. But there was something else underneath that. like dried flowers kept in a book. How do you sniff flower? I'll be quiet. Or freshly turned earth from a garden. Noel shook the cold off his shoulders. I make a decision. Explore the side hallway. Noel hesitated. No! A shadow to his left caught his attention. He took the side hallway, moving away from the main light. I didn't know it was dark. It was narrow, dark with peeling wallpaper. Can I see it? At the end, a full-length mirror reflected the gloom. He didn't remember a mirror there from his childhood visits. That thing's haunted. He walked towards it. The floor creaked with every step. Damn, somebody put some nails in them boards. As he approached, his reflection blinked before he... Nope. Sir, why are we here? Did it explain it in the beginning? Because I remember describing the car and the winds, but I don't remember explaining why we were here. Is there a reason? It was just a fraction of a second. As if the image in the glass had a delay. Just an illusion, he told himself, rubbing his eyes. Fuck no, it's not. Travel fatigue, surely. But he didn't look at himself directly again. Yeah, because that thing is haunted. He returned to the hall, his heart beating faster than normal. Yeah, of course. Everything was spotless, strangely clean. Intact, like a museum. There was no dust on the furniture, nor spiderwebs. Somebody get me the cleaner of this house and bring them to mine, because there's dust everywhere. I'm allergic. On the central wall hung an oil portrait. Damn! I feel like I'm having a stroke today. Tongue twisters. A woman with dark eyes and sharp cheekbones. Her expression was firm, serious, almost accusing. A bronze plaque underneath read, Ophelia, 1913. Well, she haunts this damn house. Hold on. Give me a moment. Let me just do some things for a second while I try to avoid Ophelia's gaze. Ophelia, 1913. Damn, you're old. Ophelia? Noel frowned, confused. Wasn't my great aunt named Eugenia? Dude, you're in the wrong house. I'm sure the letter said Eugenia. Although, that name sounds familiar. You're in the wrong house! He blinked, trying to clear his memory. When he refocused his gaze, the plaque was gone. There was only smooth wood beneath the frame. A chill ran down. Damn! A chill ran down his spine. He moved towards the kitchen, seeking some normality. It had a rustic, solid wood table in the center. On it, a scene that didn't fit with the abandonment. Half-finished cup of tea. Noel reached out, and the liquid was still warm. Beside it, an open jar of homemade jam. Somebody's in this goddamn house, man. It's 2 in the morning! I'm working on it! There were no spoons. Why, hold on. Why are the spoons important? No plates, nor crumbs. Only a chair slightly pushed back, as if someone had stood up in a hurry upon hearing him arrive. Man, somebody's in here stealing their spoons. Was someone here just now? Hello? Is anyone here? His voice died without an echo. No one answered. No one better answer. The pendulum on the clock on the wall struck 10 o'clock exactly. That is wrong. It is 10 till 2. Right? 10 till 2 in the morning, man. It gave 3 deep chimes. Bong, bong, bong. Then one more. And then another 5. Noel stood still, waiting for logic. There was no 6th. The pendulum continued swinging in silence. You know, I feel like if I was in this situation and all the weird things that were happening already, I would be gone. Go call the police. Why are we here? Are we on vacation? If so, let's go rent something else, 'cause what is going on here? He dragged his feet up the stairs. The master bedroom was tidy and waiting for him. Sturdy wooden bed with a hand-knitted blanket. A table lamp was on, humming quietly. The curtainless window showed the forest, dark, impenetrable. Still. Too still. Not a leaf was moving now. I need to sleep. My mind is playing tricks on me. And then you see him, Shia LaBeouf, standing at the edge of the bed. He took off his shoes. He dropped his backpack on the floor with a thud. He went to the window to close it. Before his hand touched the metal, the latch turned. Click. It turned by itself, locking the glass pane. Man, get out of there! Noel took a step back, holding his breath. Dude, you should be holding your ass and running out of the building by now. He turned around quickly, looking for someone in the room. Shia LaBeouf. There was no one. Just the lamp humming, and his own shadow on the wall. Ew, don't ever show me that again. Exhaustion overcame him, but brought no rest. That night he dreamed of the same house. But it was empty, stripped bare. No furniture, no paintings, no life. No windows to the outside, only blind walls. There was only a door at the end of the endless hallway. Man, these fucking tongue twisters are gonna get my ass. Nope. Someone was knocking from the other side. A sharp knock. 2. 3 times. The sound reverberated in his teeth. Noel approached slowly, not wanting to. His feet moved on their own over the bare wood. He knew he shouldn't open it. He knew what was on the other side. He knew what was on the other side was wrong. But his hand turned the knob anyway. The door opened with a groan. And on the other side, in total darkness, it was him. Staring at him with unblinking eyes. The sound of the wind and the first thing to slip into his dream was the first thing to slip into his dream. Man, why are your blankets on the floor? A sharp, constant, irritating whistle, as if someone were blowing directly against the glass. Noel opened his eyes. Suddenly, his mouth was dry. The room was still. What? The room was still there, bathed in a grayish light. Everything looked the same as last night. The chair in its place, the backpack closed, everything in order. Man, these details are starting to fucking... okay. Except for the blanket. It was thrown on the floor, crumpled up far away from the bed. As if someone had yanked it off violently. Did I move that much last night? Bro, probably. He got up, his body tense and aching. He had slept poorly, in fits and starts. He remembered fragments of a dream, something with a locked door, and knocking from the other side, but the detail slipped away like water through his fingers. When he left the room, the hallway greeted him with a different smell. It no longer smelled of old dampness. It smelled of freshly cut wood, of fresh sawdust, as if someone had been sanding the floor while he slept. He walked in silence toward the stairs. He heard every creak of the board under his socks. As he passed his great aunt's portrait, he stopped dead. The painting was tilted to the left, very slightly, just a few degrees, but he was sure it was straight yesterday. He straightened it carefully, feeling a foolish discomfort on his neck. His skin crawled, as if someone were watching him from the end of the hallway. In the kitchen, last night's scene had changed completely. He found the teacup washed and dried on the counter. The jam jar was sealed tight. On the small china plate, there were 3 oatmeal cookies. They definitely weren't there the night before. Did I leave them? Am I so tired I forgot? Bruh! He sat down in front of the food. The smell of oats and honey was immense, almost cloying. Don't eat them? He stared at them, but didn't touch them. Fucking good! Something about the perfect shape repulsed him. Their unannounced presence felt like a trap. It probably is, my guy! As if they had been left by someone else, an offering, or bait. He pushed the plate away from him. The wall clock marked the hour with a metallic sound. 10 o'clock. Again. It chimed once, then another out of time, then 3 more in a row, fast, rushed, then nothing, absolute silence. This clock is totally broken. He made a mental note to look for tools to check it later. Dude, do you own this house now, or? There's no reason for us to be staying here unless you own it and you need to be here. But deep down he knew he wouldn't. The house felt suffocating. He decided to go out. He grabbed his jacket and walked towards the town looking for air. The air outside was much colder than he expected for the season. The sky remained covered with low, leaden clouds. The path crunched under his feet, full of damp stones. Everything smelled wet. It smelled of wet earth and ozone, like before a storm. Upon arrival, he noticed that San Andrean wasn't empty, but no one greeted him. They didn't even look at him in the eye. People watched him from afar, murmuring. Some turned their faces abruptly when they saw him pass. Others simply closed the door and slid the bolt, as if they didn't recognize him, or as if they recognized him too well. The only place open was a narrow store on a corner. It was old, with crooked shelves full of rusty cans. There was a mechanical scale on the worn wooden counter. Behind it, an older woman was arranging cardboard boxes. Her nails were painted a chipped black. Her gray hair pulled back in a tight, severe bun. She looked at him without smiling. Her eyes were hard. Back early, huh? Excuse me? What did you say? I said you came back early this time. Ma'am, I don't know you. No? Ma'am? I've never been here before. This is my first time here. The woman frowned, evaluating him. Then she smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Sure, never. Whatever you say, kid. Are you buying something, or did you just come in to look? Some bread and coffee, if you have any, and make it quick, please. She wrapped the items in brown paper without speaking another word. So... well, why are you in this town? I feel like you're in like a time loop or something. or there's like 20 of you running around. Yeah, or you're still sleeping, or you died on the way there. As he left, he felt a weight on the back of his neck. He felt someone was watching him from the darkness at the back of the store. A motionless silhouette behind a beaded curtain, very still, not breathing. He returned to the house. Oh my god, the scenes. He returned to the house almost running without speaking a word to anyone. He made lunch and ate alone in dense silence. The bread was stale and tasted of mold because you're just fucking driving through time, aren't you? The coffee had a metallic taste like blood or old iron. He decided he couldn't sit still. He had to check upstairs. There was a steep staircase at the end of the hall he had ignored. Great! He started to climb, counting the steps to distract himself. 1, 2, 3. There were 13 in total. Number 13 creaked twice under his weight. Upstairs, the air was noticeably colder than below. Then the smell changed suddenly. It smelled of confinement, of dust accumulated for decades, of old things rotting slowly, and something else, a sweet, cloying smell of melted candle wax. And the same scent of dried flowers he felt the night before. He smelt, not felt, unless he was rubbing it on his skin. The upper hallway was long. There were 4 doors, 2 on the left, facing each other. Another on the right, smaller. And a single one at the end in the gloom. He tried the first 3. They were closed but unlocked. They were empty, ghostly rooms. Furniture covered with white sheets that looked like shrouds. The door at the end was different. It was locked with a rusty iron bolt, and a thick chain crossed the frame. On the other side, nothing could be heard, only absolute silence. But Noel felt a physical pressure in his chest as he approached, as if something on the other side were holding its breath, waiting for him to make a mistake. I don't have the key for this. Better that way. First smart thing you've said all game. Or thought. He didn't try to force it. His instinct screamed at him to get away. Not yet. He wasn't ready. He went down the stairs, almost fleeing from the upper floor. He sought distraction at the desk in the main living room. He found a stack of hardcover notebooks. He opened them at random. They all had the same handwriting. A delicate, cursive, ancient script. But the stroke was firm, decisive. Written in black ink that hadn't faded with time. I'm telling you, this has something to do with time, man. On the first page of one, he found a single phrase. What the house remembers becomes real. Man, this fucking house is alive, isn't it? Basically. Alright. He slammed the notebook shut, kicking up dust. What the hell is that supposed to mean? The rest of the day passed exasperatingly slow. Every so often, Noel looked up at the ceiling. Why are we here? If you were this bored. He thought he heard dragging footsteps upstairs, but every time he went up to check, there was no one. At dusk, the interior became unbearable. He sat on the porch with a blanket over his shoulders. The sky was covered in red clouds, like wounds. The forest in front of him shook with the rising wind. And then among the dark trunks, he saw something. He thought he saw a still figure standing in the undergrowth. It didn't move. It made no gestures. It didn't approach the house. It was just there, a black stain in the twilight, staring fixedly at the porch. It stayed there, watching him, until the night swallowed it up. The cookies! Noel woke up with a violent jolt as if falling into a void. Did we go to sleep? He sat up in bed, gasping for air. He didn't remember the nightmare, but the fear was still there. His breath came in short, with short white clouds. The air was freezing, much more so than the night before. It was still cold, one that chilled to the bone. He looked at the window. It was still closed and locked. Then he saw the chair in the corner. The blanket he had left lying on the floor was there, folded in a perfect square, geometric. He hadn't touched it. He was sure. Again? Am I sleepwalking, or am I going crazy? Dude, I would love an explanation as to why you're here. He got up, barefoot. Never do that. His feet curled upon, touching the frozen wooden floor. He walked to the window and yanked the curtains open. Outside, the world had disappeared. The mist covered the forest, thick, white, and solid. It looked like a wall of cotton pressing against the glass. But looking down at the wet ground, he saw something. Something that broke the monotony of the mud. Footprints. They were human. Small. Barefoot. Toes dug deep into the cold earth. They circled the house in a perfect ring. Yeah, as if someone had been patrolling or trapping him. Who walks barefoot in this cold? Great question. It's gonna be you when you're hauling ass out of here. He scanned for the start of the trail. There were no signs. They came from the forest. No mud on the front porch. No wet traces inside the room. The footprints simply were there. He went out into the hallway, gripping a heavy flashlight. Where did we get this? Dawn had broken hours ago, but the house remained in gloom. Sunlight died before entering through the dirty windows. He walked down the corridor, a beam of light cutting ahead of him. He stopped. One of the side doors, which was closed last night, now wasn't. It was ajar, just a few inches. He remembered trying the knob, and it was locked yesterday. And now it had no key. And it had no visible latch. Only a dark mouth and silence behind. He pushed the wood with his fingertips. The door creaked, complaining of disuse. The beam of light swept the interior. Nothing. Bare walls, clean floor. Just a wooden chair in the exact center of the room. It was facing the blank wall, like a punishment chair. On the seat, a folded sheet of paper. Yellow paper, old, brittle to the touch. Great, you picked it up, that's so fantastic. He picked it up. The handwriting was identical to the notebooks. The same firm hand, the same black ink. It said a single phrase. To remember is to obey. What does that mean? Who leaves this? Go straight to... What? He crumpled the paper and shoved it into his pocket, feeling nauseous. I can either explore the hallway a moment longer or go straight to write in the notebook. Why do I want to write in the notebook? Let's explore the hallway a moment longer. He needed air, even if it was stale. Instead of returning to the dining room, he walked a bit more down the hall. He reached a narrow side window. On the other side, the fog seemed glued glass like paste. It was almost liquid, moving slowly. For a second, he swore he saw a shadow move in it. A small silhouette passing right in front of the window. He blinked and pressed his face into the cold glass. Nothing, just white and gray. A feeling of deja vu shook him violently. He had looked through this window before. He had felt this fear. He returned to the dining room, more confused and dazed than before. He sat at the large table with one of the old notebooks. He opened a new blank page. The pen trembled in his hand. He wrote quickly. Door opened by itself. Chair alone in empty room. Note with strange phrase, to remember is to obey. He stared at the last word. He underlined the word, remember. Once, twice, 3 times, until almost tearing the paper. He did it without thinking too much, like an automation. As if he knew his own mind would try to erase it later. The rest of the day dragged on, slowly and heavily. Noel barely took a bite. Okay, of what? His stomach was knotted. He lay down on the living room sofa without realizing it. The house was plunged in absolute oppressive silence. I gotta take a drink of water. Holy schnitzels. I am warm. Probably because of you, Benji. His eyelids weighed tons. Benji, please get off of me. And then, against his will, he fell asleep. Oh! Sleep was not a relief. It was an immersion. In his dream, the house wasn't made of wood and stone. It was made of old, fresh flesh and dry tenon. Ew. The wall pulsed with a slow, sickly rhythm. The floor creaked as if breathing under his feet. Ew. Inhale. Exhale. He saw a staircase going up to nowhere into darkness. And at the top, a figure was knitting. Sitting in a rocking chair made of bones. She had a dirty wedding veil over her face. He knew it was his great aunt. But he also knew it wasn't her. It was something older. The figure didn't speak, only moved the needles. Click, click, click. Until she stopped her hands and whispered without a mouth, "When you remember, the house will go silent." The phrase exploded in his head and woke him up. Ugh. He woke up, screaming inwardly. He was sweating, cold, his shirt stuck to his back. He sat up suddenly on the sofa. It was sunset, red light bathed into the room like blood. The notebook was still on the table where he had left it. It was open. But the page no longer said what he had written. There was a new phrase in his own handwriting, but deformed. I came before, written over and over and filling the margins. I came before. No, I didn't write this. I didn't do it, I was asleep. He slammed the notebook shut and threw it far away. That night the darkness felt like a slab. The house became darker and more hostile than ever. Noel was in bed, eyes open, unable to sleep. Then he heard it. Something was moving upstairs. Footsteps. Heavy, very slow, deliberate. It sounded like someone dragging their feet instead of walking. Or like dragging something. Fear turned into fury. He grabbed the flashlight. He went out into the hall and faced the stairs. He climbed the steps. 1, 2, The wood groaned under his boots. 3. Every step was deafening beat in his ear. He reached the end of the upper hallway. He shined a light on the door at the end, the chained door. It was still closed. The chain was taut, biting into the wood. Motionless. Nothing had entered or left through there. He got close to smell the door seam. Why? The air on the other side smelled of melted, rancid candle wax. And something else. A sweet, sickly smell. Like the perfume his mother used when he was a child. But distorted, rotten. Oh my god, I can't see. He backed away in disgust and returned to his room. He closed the door and propped the chair against the lock. He sat on the bed, elbows on his knees. He breathed deeply, trying not to vomit. He closed his eyes for a moment to pray or curse. When he opened them, he saw something peeking out from under his pillow. He reached in. It was cold. A key. Small. Of black, rough iron. Old-fashioned. It weighed more than it should. Cold as a river in stone. As a river stone in water. In winter. What? Was it there before? Did I sleep on this? He didn't know. His memory was a sieve. Sieve? But something in his gut told him yes. That it had always been there, waiting for him to dare to look. The key was still on the nightstand where he had left it. Small, black, with the metal rough and pitted by time. Noel hadn't touched it since last night. It disgusted him. But he felt it calling him, like an invisible magnet. He didn't need to try it in any lock to know. He knew exactly which door it opened. Motionless. Petrified. Not a leaf moved. The birds had gone silent. The wind, which howled before, had vanished completely. Oh, as if the world were holding its breath. Use the key. He couldn't wait any longer. Curiosity was stronger than terror. He climbed the stairs, clutching the key in his fist. Step by step, overcoming the resistance of the air. Upstairs, the atmosphere was dense, almost liquid. The chain still crossed the door at the end. But it was no longer taut like last night. It hung loose, curved, as if it had given up. Noel inserted the key into the rusty lock. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made yesterday. It turned with a slight click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. The chain came loose on its own and fell. It didn't hit the floor with a crash. It slid softly like a metal snake. The door opened slightly with a sigh of stale air. Ooh! He entered, shining the flashlight. The room was covered by a layer of thick gray dust. It looked like a dirty snow accumulated over the decades. Everything was gray, except for a desk in the corner. There, the dust seemed to have been recently moved. There was a single bed without sheets, skeletal. A chair against the wall and a blind, boarded-up window. The light from his flashlight cut the darkness into thin lines. He approached the desk. There was an open book. It was missing many pages, torn out violently. But on a still legible sheet, there was handwritten phrase. You doubted the first time, too, but you did it anyway. First time? What is he talking about? Next to the book rested a small wooden box. Small, dark, polished by use. It had strange symbols carved on the lid. None were recognizable, but the geometry was dizzying. Yep. Upon touching it, the wood vibrated. Damn. Under his fingertips, a hollow sound came from the other side of the room. 14. Like a response to his touch, a vibration in the wall. Noel approached the wood panels. He tapped gently with his knuckles. Knock, knock. It sounded hollow. With his fingernail, he pushed a board that seemed loose. He moved it barely, revealing a hidden hinge. Inside was a dark hollow, a secret compartment between the studs. I understand why it's so hard to read now. It's because it's in a different, being translated from another language. God. And inside it, only one thing. A photograph. He took it out with his hands. With hands that didn't respond well. Benji, get off of me, please. It was an old photo, printed on a grainy black and white paper. It showed the facade of this very house, and standing in front of the porch there was a man, standing rigid with his hands in his pockets, looking straight at the lens, straight at Noel. Noel felt his mouth go dry to the point of pain. The man in the photo was him. A little younger, with clothes Noel didn't own. But his face, his eyes, that grimace of sadness were unmistakable. A faint echo exploded in his mind. The physical sensation of having stood there. Of having been someone else but thinking the same thing as now. But never fully remembering, always forgetting. He turned the photo over, handwritten. There was a date, October 14th, 2019. Exactly 5 years ago. It can't be. I never came here as an adult. His legs failed him, and he sat on the bare bed. The photograph burned in his hand. His heart beat against his chest, trying to get out. The wall seemed to have moved half a meter closer. The dust floated thicker, suffocating. The air had become unbreathable. Noel looked at his hands, stained with gray dust. He felt different. He was no longer just a visitor. But he didn't know why, nor what it meant. He left the room, walking like a drunk. He closed the door gently without making a noise. He put the chain back in place. But this time, he didn't secure it with a padlock. He just left it hanging, pretending it was locked, as if he knew there were no point in trying to lock anything away anymore. God, Jesus. Noel went down the stairs with a feeling of lead in his chest. The house seemed to have woken up in a bad mood. The kitchen was wrapped in dense, unnatural silence. The kettle was still on the stove, but it was cold to the touch. He was sure he hadn't taken it out of the cupboard. He poured himself a tea with lukewarm tap water. The taste was dreadful, bitter with a metallic aftertaste. He spat the first sip out into the sink. Turning around, he saw the table. It was a mess. Old books, open and yellowed, papers scattered. He didn't remember messing anything up yesterday. Among the mess, one object stood out for its neatness. A thick, cream-colored paper envelope sealed with red wax. The wax seal was broken in the middle. It looked like a circular figure, perhaps a sun or an eye. The envelope had his full name written on it in fountain pen. Noel Thomas Barilla. The handwriting was elegant, ancient, Trembling slightly, he tore the paper. Inside was a single sheet of letter paper. The calligraphy was impeccable, without smudges. It began directly without a date. Noel, I know that reading this will make you feel confused. It's not the first time, and although you deny it, it won't be the last. Noel felt a knot tightening in the pit of his stomach. He kept reading, devouring the words. You are in the house, our house. Maybe you don't remember, but you came before many times. Every time do not lock the entrance. Signed to C. Noel dropped the letter on the table. He stared at it as if it were a poisonous insect. Nothing in it seemed familiar to him, and yet voices had screamed that it was true. I want to read it again. Noel picked up the paper again. He ran his fingertip over the ink. He was looking for something between the lines, a code, a lie, some hidden message in the pressure of the strokes, some clue as to who C was. But he only found more unanswered questions, and the certainty, heavy as stone, that he had already been there. He put the letter on the desk, away from his sight. He observed the shelves on the opposite wall. There was something messy in the perfect row of books. One of the volumes protruded just a few millimeters. He pulled slightly on the spine. It was stuck. He pulled harder and noticed it wasn't a real book. Behind several fake spines was a hollow space. He reached into the darkness and pulled out a book with no title. It was covered in sticky gray dust. He opened it. On the first page, pasted in, was a photograph of him, a young woman, dark-haired, sitting by this same stove. The posture, the clothes, everything seemed painfully familiar. Behind the photo, written with the same firm handwriting as the letter, do not lock the door this time. You know what happens if you do. Noel ran to the front door and threw it open. A wall of thick fog awaited him outside. The world blurred beyond the porch railing. The forest couldn't be seen, nor the path, nor the gate. He took a step outside, defiant. The air was dense, almost solid. It was hard to breathe. A deep, unnatural silence enveloped everything. He walked to the edge of the tree line. Beyond the fog was a white abyss. This makes no sense. It's impossible for it to be this dense. The cold chilled him to the bone. He went back inside, shivering. He closed the door behind him. He didn't need to return the key. The latch clicked by itself. Go back and unlock it. The fire he had lit last night was a pile of gray ash. The temperature in the house was dropping fast. He approached the hearth to try to revive the embers. Something crunched under the sole of his boot. He looked down at the rug. Another envelope. No wax seal, no name, thrown as if it just slid there. He opened it quickly, tearing the paper. Noel, this house keeps things of yours. Old things you don't want to see, things you deny. If you decide to look, don't do it alone. Not this time, not again. He turned the page over. There was another phrase on the back. Memory hides behind the attic. Noel felt an electric chill run down his spine. Oh no! Suddenly a sharp creak on the floor above. A footstep, heavy, real. Then another. The wood groaned slowly, thump, thump. It sounded as if someone was walking barefoot on the boards. He looked towards the staircase, paralyzed. Nothing moved in the gloom of the landing. But he knew, with animal terror, that he wasn't alone. He forced himself to climb a step. The second step creaked under his weight like a gunshot. His heart pounded against his ribs, aching. A cold sweat covered his forehead and hands. He reached the landing of the stairs. The air was freezing. To his left, the dark hallway to the bedrooms. To the right, the closed door of the attic. He advanced slowly down the hallway. Every step seemed to weigh a ton. He stopped in front of his mother's room. The door was ajar, just a black crack. He placed his palm on the wood. He felt an unusual residual heat, as if there had been someone inside seconds ago. Hello? Is someone there? Only silence answered. He pushed the door with infinite slowness. I gotta take another water, Jesus. I have no idea how long this game is. Or story. The room was empty and in shadows. Just as he had left it years ago, the bed made. But on the white quilt, another letter. This time there was no envelope, just a sheet of paper folded in 3 parts. He unfolded it carefully, fearing what it should say. Yep, that's what we're going with. The handwriting was the same, but the ink glistened in the flashlight beam. It was wet. It said, "I warned you. I told you not to lock the door." What? If you did, now you can no longer leave. In that precise moment, in that precise instant, a metallic click was heard downstairs. That's not good. The unmistakable sound of the front door locking. Did it lock by itself? It can't be. He ran to the hallway stumbling. He went down the steps, 2 at a time, almost falling. He threw himself against the front door. It was locked. The lock was turned all the way. He searched his pockets. The key wasn't there. He pounded the wood with his closed fist. Then he rested his forehead against the door, breathing heavily. The cold of the wood pierced his skull. Then behind him, he heard the sound again. Footsteps on the upper floor. But this time, they weren't walking. They were running. Thump, 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 coming towards the stairs. Noel spun around, pressing his back to the door. Something was coming down the stairs at full speed. He couldn't see it in the darkness, but he felt the vibration in the floor getting closer. He took refuge in the kitchen, closing the door behind him. He leaned his back against the wood and jammed the handle with a chair. He scanned the table for a weapon, anything. The original letter had disappeared. In its place was a photograph of a woman. This time, it was turned completely towards him. The woman in the photo looked straight at him and smiled, a smile that wasn't there before. Noel opened his eyes and suddenly inhaled a mouthful of cold air. He didn't remember falling asleep. The last memory was the terror of the footsteps, the closed door. Now he was hunched over the kitchen table. His neck hurt, and his back was stiff and in bad posture. He looked around in panic, searching for the threatening letter. It was no longer there. The table was clean. Only his cup of tea remained. A perfect vertical column of steam rose from the liquid. It's the only thing that seemed real in this house. In a house that lied. He looked towards the window. The sky was still covered in that opaque white, sunless. The fog hadn't moved at all. Time seemed to have froze while he slept. Nope! 3 sharp knocks on the front door broke the silence. Knock, knock, knock. The sound resonated in his ribs like a hammer blow. Noel jumped up, knocking the chair backward. He stood up motionless, holding his breath. He waited in silence, praying it was just the wind. Again, more insistent. They weren't Knucks from a monster, they were human Knuckles. He approached the hall cautiously, sticking to the wall in a low, trembling voice. Oh. Hello? Who is it? He saw a blurry silhouette outlined behind the frosted glass. Noel? Varela? His heart skipped a violent beat. They knew his name. The voice didn't sound aggressive, it sounded resigned. He turned the latch and opened the door slowly. A woman stood on the threshold. She was about 30, wrapped in a gray wool coat. Her hair was damp from the fog, and she had deep, dark circles under her eyes. Her eyes watched him with a mix of pity and fatigue. My name is Lucia. Don't be scared. I knew your mother. What? When? I've never seen you before. Many years ago. Before all this got worse. I used to come here for other reasons to try to help her. Noelle frowned, evaluating whether to slam the door in her face. What reasons? What are you talking about? She looked towards the interior of the house, then at the forest. It's cold out here, Noelle. Can I come in? He hesitated. His every instinct told him, and every instinct screamed at him to not let anyone in. But her eyes seemed to be the only honest thing for miles. He nodded and stepped aside. Minutes later, they were sitting in front of the stove. Noelle had stoked the fire, which crackled loudly. The heat brought color back to her hands. This house has a memory, you know. But it's a tricky memory. Really? What are you doing, Benji? Alexa, turn the light on, please. What are you doing? Like that of a resentful old man. Sometimes it remembers things that it never happened. Sometimes it forgets the essential upon purpose. To confuse you. Stop talking in riddles. What do you know about my mother? That she clung to this place as if it were a life preserver. Benji, I swear to God. What is with you? She believed the house held something she had lost. Okay, there you go. Okay. Noelle looked at her with a suspicion. He didn't like how she spoke. And you? What are you looking for here in the middle of nowhere? That's what he's looking for. Yep. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking for the same thing as you. A way out. She got up and walked around the room. She moved with confidence, moving around the furniture without looking. Have you been to the attic yet? No, it's locked. I don't have the key. You never need a key for that. Just know where to touch. She stopped in front of the fireplace. With the tip of her boot, she slightly turned a loose tile. A dry click resonated on the floor, unlocking a mechanism. You have to be very careful with what you choose to remember. She turned to him and reached into her pocket. Here, this was yours. She held out something small, wrapped in a velvet cloth. Noelle took it. It was heavy. It was a music box of dark wood, worn by touch. It had a blurry engraving on the lid he couldn't distinguish. Without thinking, he turned the small side crank. An ancient, childish, sad melody filled the room. Noelle felt a sharp pang in his temple. A white flash crossed his mind. Distant laughter, the warmth of the fireplace, a voice singing. She used to play it for you when you had nightmares. Did you know? Noelle closed his eyes, dizzy. He didn't answer. There's something else outside, in the forest. What thing? Well, it's past the edge of the oaks. It's the only place where the fog doesn't move. Noelle opened his eyes. Fear climbed up his back again. How do you know all that? Because I was there many times. And because you were I never... Who are you really? You're not a neighbor. That changes with every version of you. In some, I'm a stranger, in others, I am a friend. Today, I'm the one who accompanies you to the edge. Tension hung in the air like dust in sunlight. Lucia ran her fingers along the back of an armchair. Your mother spoke a lot about you in her letters, but you weren't like this in her descriptions. Like what? So silent, so broken inside. You don't know me. You have no idea who I am. I know enough. I know what you did to yourself to forget. Noel clenched his jaw until his teeth hurt. Suddenly the old clock on the wall made a noise. Tick. The hand moved. Tick. Tick. Noel had never seen it work. It was rusted. Everything is starting again. There is no more time. What is starting again? The cycle. The house is waking up completely. Silence returned, broken only by the tick-tock of the clock. Sometimes I think we came here to remember together. What do you expect from me? I don't understand what you want. For you to not deny yourself, for you to accept what you are going to see. Lucia stood up abruptly. I have to go before it gets darker. Listen to me well, Noel. Do not lock the door tonight. This time, please. Let whatever needs to enter, enter. Before he could ask more, she opened the door. The fog seemed to pounce on her, to engulf her. She left without looking back. Noel was left alone in the hall. Her warning remained echoing in the halls. Don't lock it. He looked at the lock, his hands went to the key, but he stopped. He remembered Lucia's tired look. This time, against all logic, he didn't lock the door. He left the latch free. Maybe that's why. The cycle began to break impeccably. He returned to the living room with his heart beating fast. He looked at the music box again. It was still playing softly. Then he noticed something strange on the coffee table. The photograph he found before was back there, but it was different. The image had mutated. He was no longer alone. It showed him and Lucia, sitting on the porch of the same house. They were both laughing, heads together. It was the same framing, the same light, the same house. But the photo was clearly from years ago. Noel put his hands to his mouth. He didn't remember that moment. He didn't remember meeting her. But his expression in the photo was undeniably real. He looked relaxed, at peace, as if he had been happy, as if he had once loved her deeply. Noel opened his eyes, disoriented. He didn't know when he had fallen asleep. Ugh. He was sitting in the chair, his neck stiff and aching. The music box was still playing on the wooden table. Tink, tink, tink. The melody repeated so many times he no longer heard it. It had become part of the air, like the beating of his heart. Outside, the fog remained, unchanging, dense, eternal, opaque. He felt a sharp thump in his chest, a violent palpitation. It wasn't fear, it was a pull, a hook buried in his sternum. An impulse, almost a military order, forced him to move. He moved like a puppet, without thinking, without hesitating. He put on his damp jacket, grabbed a heavy flashlight. He looked for an old canteen bottle and put the box in his pocket. The music was muffled by the fabric, but didn't stop. He didn't even ask himself what he was looking for. He only knew with absolute certainty that he had to go out. The forest was mute, as if holding its breath. No birds were heard, nor the rustle of leaves, nor insects. Only the crunch of his own boots breaking dead leaf litter, and the music, tink, 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 coming from his coat. He didn't remember winding it. It should have stopped hours ago. His feet found a hidden path under the brush. He barely remembered it from his childhood, but his legs knew the way. Something shuddered inside him. It wasn't last night's fear. It was something worse. Anticipation. The landscape changed subtly. Lena? Low branches were cut by machete, scarred long ago. Someone had passed through here long ago or many times. On the pine trunks, red ribbon hung. They were faded, rotted by rain and sun. They looked like old bloody bandages tied to the bark. He stopped in front of a wooden sign nailed to the ground. It was covered in mold, but the white paint still resisted. It said, almost screaming in silence, "Keep away." Beyond the sign, the world disappeared into white mist. Noel crossed the boundary without stopping. He felt the change on his skin. The air became denser, heavier, still. Like entering a vacuum-sealed room. Ooh. The path ended in perfect circular clearing. Here, the wind didn't enter. The fog formed a low ceiling. In the exact center, there was a stone wall, ancient, covered in writing that looked like green vines. A frayed rope hung from the crossbeam into the black void. He approached, mesmerized. Jesus. The stone rim had deep marks carved by chisel. Geometric symbols he didn't understand rationally, but his stomach tightened upon seeing them. They were familiar. Like a birthmark, he reached out and placed his palm on the stone. So cold it burned. An image exploded in his mind with the force of a blow. The world spun. He saw himself a child in shorts, standing in front of the same well under a sun that no longer existed. Beside him was Lucia, much younger, almost a teenager, and his mother, tall, with her hair down. "If you ever forget who you are, come back here." The voice resonated in his skull, clear, warm, and real. The memory cut off abruptly. Noel stumbled back, gasping. The music box in his pocket stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. From the bottom of the well, a murmur emerged. It wasn't the wind. The air was still. "Noel," a female voice, raspy, pained. It was familiar, impossibly familiar. He approached the edge slowly, dragging his feet. He leaned over the stone mouth. He looked into the unfathomable darkness. Nothing. Only thick blackness like oil. He took another step, leaning dangerously far. A whisper behind his back made him spin around on guard. There was no one in the clearing, only the blind trees. He looked back at the well. Something was shining deep down, metallic or watery reflection. He took a flashlight and aimed a beam of light downward. The light was swallowed by darkness before touching the bottom. The cold rose from the hole and pierced through him, yet he didn't want to leave. He couldn't. The rope hung, temptingly inviting him to go down. Old, rotten, but maybe it would hold. He hesitated. His mind screamed run. His body wanted to fall. Lean a bit more over the edge. Curiosity was stronger. He took another step. His knees touched the cold stone of the rim. The cold climbed his legs like veins of ice. The abyss seemed more real and honest than the world above. He closed his eyes for an instant, dizzy with vertigo. When he opened them, the shine down there pulsed strongly, like an eye opening in the darkness. Then he heard the crunch of broken branches behind him. "You shouldn't be alone here." Her voice sounded flat, without surprise. Lucia emerged from among the trees like a solid ghost. How did you know? Did you follow me? No need to follow you. It always ends up here. Noelle always comes back to the well sooner or later. What is this? Why does it call me? That's a node. A wound in the earth. A place where time got infected. Things repeat here, but they change a little each time. Noelle looked back at the carved stone with horror. What do these symbols mean? It's a warning in ancient... Yep. It means something like door of no return, mouth of the earth. The silence grew thicker between them. Your mother tried to seal it with rituals, with prayers. But it was never enough. The crack is older than her. What is down there, Lucia? Not a what, a who, or what remains of someone. Noelle's heart beat like a war drum. I heard her. I heard her voice. I know the house uses the voice that... I know. The house uses the voice that hurt you the most. Lucia looked at him with infinite sadness in her eyes. Once I went down to, long ago. What did you find? Myself. But not the version I thought I was. Found my worst parts. The wall seemed to breathe at his back. Subtle vapor, almost invisible, emerged from the center. If you go down, something changes in the story. But you don't know that. But you don't know what. And if I don't go down, something also changes, but you don't get to choose it. Noelle moved closer to the edge, fascinated. The rope moved slightly on its own, as if someone were tightening it from below. Today is not the day, Noelle. How do you know? Because you are still afraid, and fear feeds you, but doesn't protect you. Noelle breathed deeply, filling his lungs with stale air. He wanted to look one more time, but his legs didn't respond. Let's go back. The wind is picking up. I don't want to forget this. You won't be able to, even if you want to. They walked in silence, back to the path. Halfway there, the music box vibrated in his pocket, started playing again on its own. Tink, tink, tink. The same broken fragment of melody as always. But this time, Noelle noticed something different in the sound. Between the metallic notes, there was a very soft voice, almost like radio interference. Don't close your eyes this time. Look at me. Noelle opened his eyes and looked at the ceiling. There was no startle this time. He woke up with new, unknown sensation. It wasn't fear. Fear is hot, agitated. It wasn't anxiety. Anxiety is electric. It was something like a frozen certainty. An absolute resignation. The house remained still, too still. Like an animal playing dead before the hunt. The music box was closed on the nightstand, mute. The wall clock had stopped exactly 3:14. He got out of bed and walked towards the upper hallway. His feet moved with a purpose that didn't feel his own. He knew exactly where to go without hesitating. To the right, at the end of the hall where the light barely reached, there was a door, lower than the others, of rough wood. It had always been closed, always forgotten on purpose. He reached for the black iron handle. He didn't look for the key or tools. He turned his wrist. The mechanism yielded without squeaking. Smooth as butter. Lucia was right. You never needed a key. You just have to be ready to enter. He pushed the door, and the smell hit him head on. The attic smelled of old paper, years of stillness, and wood smoke. It was a dry smell, scratching the throat. Light filtered in thin, almost solid lines from skylight. Millions of dust particles danced in the beams of light. He took a step inside. The floor creaked differently up here. It didn't sound like floorboards. It sounded hollow, organic, as if you were walking on dry ribs and not wood. The place was crammed with objects, cardboard boxes ruined by dampness, rigid leather suitcases with rusty buckles, furniture and mirrors covered with heavy gray blankets. They looked like human figures crouching under the fabric. In the center of chaos, a clean space, an empty wicker rocking chair. Beside it on the floor, a blanket folded with military care. And on the blanket, like an offering, a red notebook. Noelle approached and took it carefully. The cover was dyed leather, worn at the edges. It had single worn engraved in gold, almost erased. Mother. He dropped into the rocking chair. The wicker chair creaked under his weight. He felt a magnetic urgency. He didn't want to wait. He felt that if he hesitated, the notebook would vanish in his hands, as if the moment could undo itself in the air. He opened the stiff cover. Paper crackled. His eyes scanned the first page. The handwriting was unmistakable, same as in the letters, precise, clean, without haste or cross-outs. Page after page, his mother's voice spoke of him. She recounted details of his childhood with clinical coldness. She spoke of moments he didn't remember at all, or worse, moments he had decided to erase. Sometimes I think you weren't mine, said an entry dated 1995. I look at you and see a stranger occupying my son's body, but then you come back from the forest, and everything falls into place. He turned the pages, looking for something he could deny. On another page, he found a phrase underlined twice. The house chooses him, no matter how many times he denies it. The house chooses me, what for? He kept reading, hypnotized by horror. Today, Noelle cried for hours in front of the attic door. Said someone was calling him from inside, scratching at the door. I went to look and there was no one, but I felt the cold too. Noelle slammed the notebook shut. He couldn't breathe. He looked up at the slanted ceiling. The light from the skylight clouded over suddenly. A shadow passed over the dirty glass, as if something huge had landed on the roof. He heard a dry sound on the tiles thump, a heavy step, 3 rhythmic knocks, slow, deliberate, looking for a weak point. They sound human, but far too heavy. Then total silence. Noelle held his breath, looking up, until the floor creaked behind him. Inside the attic, behind his back, I'm not alone. I was never alone. He turned slowly, expecting the worst. There was no one standing there. He only saw the rocking chair rocking gently. Creak, crack, as if someone had just got up. On the seat where he was before, there was now a photo. It wasn't there before, Noelle was sure. He approached it. In the picture were him and his mother, standing in front of the house on a sunny day, both smiling at the camera, happy. But behind him, barely visible, on the first floor window, there was a figure, tall, dark, motionless behind the glass, watching the happy family. Noelle brought the photo closer to his eyes, shaking. The figure had his same face, and his same eyes watching him from the paper. That night, sleep slipped away from him like sand through his fingers. Noelle tossed and turned in bed, eyes fixed on the darkness. The red notebook rested on the table like an extracted organ, closed, inert. But Noelle could swear he saw it breathing to the rhythm of his own blood. Outside, the fog hit the glass rhythmically, like heavy breathing of a gigantic animal. The pressure in the room changed. The air became static. Something was moving without moving. A faint, metallic note pricked the silence. The music box. Again, by itself. Noelle closed his eyes, unable to fight anymore. He felt the floor disappear, and the house transformed around him. He opened his eyes. He was in the hallway. Something was wrong. The place looked the same, but the paintings were hung upside down. The windows faced a dry, gray, dead forest. There was no fog there, only skeletal branches. There was no dust on the furniture. There was no heat nor cold, only sterile void. The house was alive, pulsing, but it sounded like a distant echo, like an old recording. In the dining room, he saw an impossible scene. There was a table with a linen tablecloths, 2 crystal glasses with dark wine. Someone was laughing, a clear laugh without the weight of fear. He saw a younger version of himself on the other side of the table, and Lucia, also younger, in a light dress. They were toasting. The glasses clinked without making a sound. To your return, Noel, at last. I always come back to you, always. The present. Noel tried to scream at them, ask what this was. He opened his mouth, but he had no voice. He was a ghost in his own memory. He walked away down the distorted hallway. He touched the door frames with numb fingers. Each door frame had a word carved into it. Return. Forget. Deny. Remember. He reached the end of the hall where the blank wall should be. There's a staircase that didn't exist in the real world. It was a black iron forged in the shape of twisted roots. It descended into an impossible spiral that pierced the ground. He went down. His steps rang metallic clang, clang. The walls of the shaft filled with photographs as he advanced. Hundreds of thousands. All of him. Child Noel, young Noel, old Noel, dead Noel. In rooms he had never recognized people he didn't know. He went down for what felt like hours until he found himself in front of a smooth door without a handle. The door was of gray, cold metal. It had a phrase engraved in the center. He who remembers too much is erased. Noel raised his hand, hesitating whether to touch it. Stop a moment, reflect. He stopped, hand in the air. That phrase hit a deep part of his chest. Gets erased? What if he had really forgotten something vital for survival? He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, looking in for courage, and then slowly he reached out and pushed. The door opened by itself, silent. He crossed the threshold into a blinding white light. Then his eyes adjusted and he saw an empty room. There was only a chair in the center, and an old man sitting. He was facing away, hunched over, white, thinning hair. Noel approached, feeling like he was walking towards a broken mirror. The man turned slowly in the chair. It was him, much older, consumed. The skin was a map of wrinkles, but the eyes were the same, dark, scared. You've come many times already, kid. Young Noel wanted an answer, but his voice was still trapped. This time, you got further than the others. I congratulate you. But you still haven't seen what matters. You're still blind. The old man stood up with effort. He limped towards him. When you open all the doors, the last thing left is you. And that is the hardest thing to look at. He held up the notebook identical to his mother's. Noel reached out and took the object. It covered in the same mother. It said Noel Thomas Varela, version 13. The old man smiled sadly and vanished into thin air. The young man was left alone in the whiteness, and then reality broke, and he woke up. It wasn't just a dream, it was too solid. It was like looking from the other side of the mirror. Noel sat up suddenly in bed, soaked in a cold sweat. The light of dawn entered pale through the window. He looked down at his lap. There, a heavy and real, was a red notebook, identical to the one in the attic. But upon opening it, he saw this one had his own handwriting, and a single phrase written on the first page. Do not close the last door without knowing who you are. Noel walked aimlessly, dragging his feet through the damp earth. Or at least that's what his rational mind wanted to believe. But his legs moved with unsettling autonomy. They carried him along a narrow path opening through the undergrowth. He knew this path. He felt it in the soles of his boots, although his memory swore he had never traveled it. To the sides of the forest parted like a respectful whisper. Low branches, which should have hit him, moved aside. They didn't touch him, as if nature avoided contact with him. He looked back for a second. The house had disappeared, swallowed by the white fog. He looked forward again. There, waiting for him between two ancient oaks, a figure. I knew you would come. You didn't take long. Her voice was a part of the forest. There was no surprise in it. Where are we, Lucia? What is this place? It's the end of the road, or the beginning, depending on who's looking. It's whether those who can no longer try again rest. The clearing was a small circle of grayish grass. There were dozens of rotten wood crosses with no legible names, and stones rough, driven into the ground. They had carved symbols similar to those on the wall. Some were broken, split by lightning or roots. Others were covered in orange lichens that looked like rust. The air was still, dead. Lucia knelt firmly next to a low, mossy stone. This was Thomas, the first one who brought the fissure here in his blood. 1891, he died screaming, they say. The first fissure? Did he bring it? I thought it was in the house. It's not a physical place, Noel. It's not a hole in the floor. It's a wound. In memory, in family blood. It's an infection in time that won't heal. Noel felt dizzy, scanned the place with widened eyes. He stopped at a newer stone of dark granite. It had his name, engraved in clumsy, hurried letters, N.T. Varela. Below, an impossible date, 1947. Noel looked at his own name carved in stone. He felt a mix of disbelief, vertigo, like falling upwards. The stone seemed to breathe under the fog, pulsing. Was it him? Was it a grandfather? Was it a mistake? He needed to know who was real. He reached out. His fingers grazed the damp, rough surface of the granite. An electric chill ran through his body, shaking him. Confused images flashed through him in a blink. Other winters, old clothes, other deaths in the same clearing. Other versions of himself falling on their knees. The sensation slowly dissipated. The stone felt warm for a second, as if it recognized him. This makes no sense. I was born in the 90s. This isn't possible. You aren't the first with that name, Noel. Nor are you the first with that face, nor with those fears. But you could be the last. You have something different. Because you did what they didn't dare to do. You opened the house. You let it speak. Instead of covering your ears, Noel took another step back, gasping for air. What happened to them? To the other me's? Some remembered too late and went mad. Others clung on to oblivion until the house consumed them. And the house is cruel. It doesn't forgive those who forget by choice. Lucia reached into her coat and pulled out a black notebook. Look at this. It's a logbook. She opened it. It was a meticulous record, almost clinical. Columns of names, dates, times. observations written in different inks over decades. Everyone who came before was there, and several entries in the margin words "reset" appeared, and others crossed out furiously "unstable" or "collapse," and only 3 very old ones "successful closure." What does successful closure mean? That they remembered the truth without breaking in the process. That they managed to leave and live. Noelle closed the notebook with trembling hands and gave it back to her. Why are you showing me this now? Because you have to understand once and for all that the house is not yours. It never was. You belong to it. You're a projection of its memory. But you still have will. You can decide what to leave it. You can decide what to leave it and what to take out. She put the notebook away and turned to look at him intensely. The cycle breaks only if you face the moment you fear most. The one you hid at the bottom of the well. I don't know which one it is. I don't remember anything that terrible. Yes, you do. Your body knows. Noelle looked down at the churned earth. He knew she was right. And when he looked up again, Lucia was no longer there. She had dissolved into the fog like smoke. Only the black notebook remained in Noelle's hand. She had left it for him. And the wind. The wind that was starting to blow again, pushing him. Noelle returned slowly along the path. The crosses disappeared behind the fog at his back. The weight of the notebook in his hands was real. Now he knew something he didn't know before, and that changed everything. He wasn't alone. He walked with the ghosts of all his past mistakes, and he never had been. Noelle prepared his backpack with mechanical movements. There was no doubt in his hand, only a cold urgency. He packed the heavy flashlight, a length of climbing rope in the canteen, the red notebook, which seemed to vibrate to the touch, and the music box, wrapped in velvet cloth. He felt he was carrying the parts of a bomb about to detonate. Outside, the wind had returned with force, but it brought no dry leaves or smell of rain. It brought whispers, echoes of forgotten conversations. He left the house and walked towards the forest without stopping. He didn't look back. He knew the house wasn't going anywhere. The well waited for him like an open mouth. Upon reaching the clearing, the well looked older than the earth itself. The stones were black with dampness, and at the same time it looked newly made, waiting to be unveiled. Noelle tied his rope to the large granite stone beside an oak. He pulled with all his weight to test the knot it held. He approached the edge and looked down. The echo of his own breathing returned, a deep sound. But it wasn't a black, empty hole. Down below, deep at the bottom, something shone faintly. A watery, pale reflection like a drowned star. He took a deep breath. He took a breath, filling his lungs with mist. He swung his legs over the edge and began to descend. The rope tensed and creaked with every meter of his descent. The stone walls oozed freezing water. The air became colder, denser, harder to swallow. He descended for what felt like hours or minutes. Time distorted in the darkness. And then, his boots touched firm ground. He reached the bottom. Oh, for fuck's sake. He turned on the flashlight, the beam of light cutting through the mist. The floor was natural stone, slippery with moss. It was dead-end cavern. There was no water. But in the center, embedded in the living rock, was a door. A low door of iron and rotten wood. And it had no lock, no handle, no visible hinges. It was just there, waiting. Noelle pushed the wood with the palm of his hand. The door yielded without a sound. like that. On the other side, there was no darkness. There was an impossible room. It was his childhood living room, perfect, intact. The smell of crayons and polished wood hit him. The wooden toys were on the floor, just used. The blue rug with drawn cars where he used to play. The shelf with his children's stories ordered by color. And the rocking chair in the corner, there she was, his mother, young with her hair loose and shiny. She was wearing the floral dress she used on Sundays. She was smiling with a sweetness that hurt to see. She had the open music box in her hand. Do you want me to play it again, Noel? Her voice was warm. Real. Too real for this abyss. Yes, please. His voice shot out before his brain could stop it. It was an automatic response, as if suddenly he was a 5-year-old boy seeking comfort again. As if the monster in the well didn't exist. I knew you would say that. You always liked this song. Her smile widened, but her eyes didn't change. You had a high fever that night. You were burning. You said someone was speaking to you from upstairs. That they were scratching at the door. Noel took a step closer, trembling. Was this real? Did it really happen? It was everything, and it was also nothing. That night you did something, Noel. Something we both decided never to remember again. The air in the room became dense, unbreathable. But you kept it anyway. Down here. And the house kept it with you to protect you. His mother's figure flickered like a failed projection. Her face blurred for a second. When the image stabilized, it was no longer his mother. In the rocking chair sat himself, Noel, a child, pale with dark circles under his eyes, hugging his own knees. Are you going to leave me alone again? Adult Noel felt his legs fail him. He knelt down. No, this time I won't leave you. The child smiled, a sad and ancient smile. Then you can look. You're ready now. The child pointed to a rough wooden box at the foot of the bed. It had the same symbol of the well carved on the lid. Noel crawled to it and opened it. Inside there was only one thing, a Polaroid photo burnt at the edges. He took it. The image revealed itself before his eyes. It showed himself as a child crying at the edge of the forest. His mother back turned, looking toward the house, and something else reflected in the house window. A blurred, dark figure, made of shadows and guilt. Tall, faceless, with hands resting on the glass. Behind the photo, a phrase written in child's handwriting. It was never outside. It was me. It was always me. Noel dropped the photo as if it were burning. He understood. The fissure wasn't a monster, it was him. The room shook violently, the walls cracked. The whole stage began to dissolve into black smoke. The illusion broke. He was back in the cavern. The stone creaked above his head, threatening to collapse. The rope tugged on its own, frantic. Noel ran towards it, stumbling over the wreckage of his memory. He grabbed hold and started to climb. Fast, desperate, gasping, lungs burning. He didn't look back. He felt darkness trying to grab his ankles. He climbed until the gray daylight blinded him. As he exited and rolled down to the grass, the forest was different. The air was light. He turned to look at the well. It was dry, filled with earth and dead leaves, and the rope was cut cleanly at the base, as if someone from below had sliced it to let him go. Noel walked along the path, stepping firmly. He didn't look back. He felt no need to watch his back. The music box in his pocket no longer played, but in his chest something new had taken place of fear. Silence. Not the terrifying void of loneliness. Real silence, peace. The sun filtered through the oak leaves, golden and warm. forest breathed differently. It smelled of pine and fertile earth. As if, finally, nature recognized him as one of its own. The house appeared among the trees, bathed in light. The eternal fog no longer surrounded it like a shroud. Windows were wide open, letting the air in. The porch looked clean, without elongated shadows. Upon entering, everything was the same, but the atmosphere had changed. The electric tension had disappeared completely. The house looked at him, demanding nothing without judging. There were no threatening letters on the table. There were no portraits changing expression. There wasn't even dust floating in the sunbeams, as if everything that needed to be said had already been said. He entered the kitchen. The cup was still on the wooden table. It was cold. It was just a cup, an inert and silent object. He sat in the chair without feeling the weight of years. He closed his eyes and listened. He didn't wait for creaks, nor footsteps, nor whispers, because he had already heard and accepted everything. The house, finally, had gotten quiet. He went up to the attic with light steps. All the hallway doors were open. The attic door, the locked room door, his mother's room. None hid secrets or monsters now. At the end of the hall he saw the fissure. Thin, vertical, like a surgical cut in reality itself. From it came no darkness, but pure light. Noel approached and placed his hand on the wall. The surface was warm. It pulsed gently, like living, healthy skin. There was no rusty handle. There was no wooden door. Only that line of light inviting him to pass. He remembered the phrase from the dream, clear as water. When you remember, the house will go silent. And this time there was no more doubts in his heart. The fissure was a wound in the world. It was an exit sign. It was a conscious choice. He took a step forward, crossing the threshold. He touched the luminous edge and crossed over. The world filled with white light. It didn't burn his eyes. It didn't hurt his skin. It was like opening his eyes after sleeping for a century. Like being born again without forgetting who you had been. And on the other side, there were no more repeated cycles, nor cursed houses holding souls, only a reconciled memory and future. And Noel Thomas Varela remembered. At last, he had the courage to let go. Yay! Sweet fucking Jesus, I'm gonna lose my voice. Game by SMV Games. Development written by and programmed by Sebastian V. Playtesting by Thiago V. Music by Scott Buckley. Released under CC by 4.0. Special thanks to everyone who played and supported the project. Sweet fucking baby Jesus. Oh god. Man, that's crazy. There's 3 endings. Chose to open yourself to the unknown. Well, that's gonna be it for now. That was the Fissure. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. And yeah, I'm gonna lose my voice. I can already feel it now. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and have a great time.